The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're coming to you live from my house with lots of technical difficulties again this morning. So strap in, be prepared, get your seatbelt on, because I don't know what kind of a ride it's going to be, but we're thrilled. We are here with the fabulous Evelyn Kung. You know that on Wednesdays, you guys, a lot of times we have Dr. Doreen Grant-Pichet here with you, and sometimes we can't have her, but sometimes when we can't have her, we have the wonderful Evelyn Kung instead, and so that is an extra special treat. And we enjoy having her here. Welcome, Evelyn. I can't hear you. You're muted because it's that kind of day.
Thank you for having me. There I am.
There you are. So, Evelyn, tell them a little bit about you and what your current role is at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders.
I have been at CARD most of my life now, which is a strange thing to say, but it's somewhere between 25, closer to 30 years. And I was a therapist and a supervisor, and I did supervision all over the world. I ran around. I was doing this before there was something called a BCBA. So it's been many, many years. I've seen lots and lots of kids, every rhyme and reason, kind and cultural, and everything across the board. And my favorite thing still is working with the parents and all of that. And at CARD, I've been the clinical director. Now I'm kind of shifting spaces a little because I do a lot of work with our curriculum, which is called Skills, and I do a lot of technology development. So, but still, I have all the clients that I see. I help supervisors here troubleshoot and problem solve when there's families that need help or when there's kids that need help.
And a lot of us, myself included, run to you when we have questions. When I have any kind of a situation that a parent reaches out to me and it's, anything of any concern, I run directly to you. So we're thrilled to have an opportunity to have you here today. We had a question that somebody asked last night, and I was like, ooh, this is the question that I want to wait and ask Evelyn in the morning. That kind of gets to the heart of a lot of what's going on right now. We have a lot of families. And by the way, disclaimer, you guys can be writing in right now and ask Evelyn questions. In fact, we're hoping that you will, because some of my technology is down. And if you wrote in a question yesterday and I had them, please rewrite them in again. I apologize because my computer is doing an update and I can't, so I'm on a different computer this morning. That's why you're getting a different angle, new and different things. So feel free to be writing in. There's lots of different ways that you can write in. You can write in, not on our live feature because that's struggling this morning. Like, I feel like in the old days when I was a waitress and it would get to be that time of night and somebody would say, I want the baked potato. I'm like, we're out of the baked potato. Okay, well, I want the shrimp scampi. We're out of shrimp, right? So then they would just, what can I have? So here's what you can have today. You can be writing in on Facebook and YouTube. You can be watching us on Facebook and on YouTube. You can be watching us on Periscope and Twitter. Later on, you can watch us on iTunes. You can listen to us on iTunes, listen on Spotify, iHeartRadio, or Deezer. Our homepage, autism-live.com, normally has a live feature, but I can't access that either. So I'm a four-legged stool that's tilting on two legs right now. But good morning to Bonnie and good morning to Michelle. Thank you guys for being here, and start writing in your questions right now. But the question that we had last night was, because CARD right now is offering 3 different modalities to families, Some families are still doing telehealth. Some families are doing in-home services. Some families have gone back to the center, and some families are doing the hybrid of the telehealth and the in-home. So the question was for families that have been doing telehealth and doing telehealth exclusively because of someone who's immune compromised in the home, is because the question was for someone who's fairly little, that their hours would be 40 hours a week, but they have not been getting quite that much telehealth, and they want advice about should they still be going for the full amount of therapy, even if they can only do telehealth right now. And I was like, well, that's a question for Evelyn. So there you go.
Well, there's so many factors involved because we all know the research shows that high intensity of hours is what makes a difference, you know? So always that's going to be the leading force, is that's the ideal. If we can get as many hours as possible so that every waking hour that child's awake is he's actually learning, just like a neurotypical kid, you know, every waking moment they are learning something, whether they're at school, home, anywhere. So that is the ideal. And then you have other issues that come along. And I would say this is something that you would have to talk to your BCBA about in terms of your treatment planning, because you have to see what are you doing and what is this child? What problems does this child have? What deficits in what they're learning are still going to be a problem? You know, there's all different kinds of kids. That's why it's a spectrum. So some kids have trouble with generalization. And I think those are the kids actually, is what type of trouble do they have with generalization? So generalization is being able to understand something across all different contexts. So in the ABA world, that could be across different people, different places, different stimuli, saying things a different way. You know, all those things are needed for a child to be able to learn anywhere, which is the goal. And so you need to sit with your BCBA and say, okay, how is he doing? What's he learning? What area is missing? And if, let's say your area is that he's starting to only interact with the parent or only interact with people through a screen, then that's going to raise flags, because as soon as the center does open, you might want to consider having that child go maybe. And right now in our centers that are open, they're going to it's only one child per room. They're having very minimal contact. They have the one therapist, you know, so the kids aren't actually allowed to play together. We have X's on the ground that shows what 6 feet apart is. So the games that they have are 6 feet apart. None of them are close, you know. So it is a little bit odd, and it's not your typical what you're thinking what center-based services are. But work with your BCBA to figure out, like, how is this child learning? Is generalization fine? And none of those things seem to be issues. And through telehealth, it's okay. But also in your programming, let's say he's gotten used to his therapist through telehealth, and you need generalization across people so that he knows he needs to show these skills with other people. You might start on the side, start bringing in, like, hey, we need more family members to get on Zoom and do some interaction. You know, like, we need grandma and grandpa, and we need everybody, not only people he knows. We need mom and dad's friends to come on. And even if it's only for a minute or two, the fact that they have to interact with someone new is often, that's what's good for them. And if the way to do it right now is through telehealth, then you need to do some creative programming with your BCBA and figure out, like, who is willing to come on, or even trying to do a play date across Zoom has been fun for the little kids, where, you know, all they're really doing is showing each other toys. And then they sit, like, literally the iPad is with them on the ground, and they're both playing Legos together, you know, and they're just learning how to show. So there's a lot of creativity that you can do with the telehealth mode. And if you can get 40 hours that way and bring all those sessions where, let's say you're doing a play date and you have a therapist monitored play date, you know, to see what you make, you know, prompting the child to interact with the other child on the screen, you know, even if it's just to show, because just showing a toy is a big milestone in development. The fact that I'm showing you something and I don't need you to do anything with it, it's a big type of social recognition, you know? So, you know, there's a lot of things that you can do. So maybe in the basic format that you have, if there isn't enough variety, you're going to have to brainstorm with your BCBA about how can we increase this variety for generalization.
And I've noticed, Evelyn, that as we talk to the parents about telehealth, it's there are several different modalities for the telehealth as well, depending on the ability of the child. But I'm also seeing that there's a huge difference between the parents who get excited and what I call buy-in. When the parent is, because what we've heard from some of the parents is that they started doing telehealth and their kiddo needed significant support, so they became the facilitator. That's one of the models where the parent is there, and the parent doesn't have to know anything because they're being prompted by the person on the screen, but the parent has to do things with their child. And what I'm hearing overwhelmingly from the parents who participate in that they're like, whoa, I am learning so much, that this ended up being the best thing that could have happened to us, because now I know more and I understand what the therapists are doing. And that for those parents, when they're doing that level of telehealth and the parent is facilitating, we're seeing those kids make tremendous progress. For the parents who maybe have to work and they're like, I just can't do it, that's not the level of telehealth that they're getting. And then they want to look at some other things. But there are some parents, I'm so proud of them that they've stepped it up and then they got excited, which is really cool. And I think is a measure of how great they are and how great the staff is, that they're able to help a parent to be able to do that. So it's just been really cool to see what the parents have said about that. I absolutely love it. Okay, so we're getting a bunch of questions that are coming in online. We're going to start with one about teeth grinding. My 6-year-old grinds his teeth when he reads his books or while sleeping. His dentist did not provide any help. What can I do to help him? And one of the other viewers wrote in and said, has your dentist recommended a mouth guard? I know it's different being autistic, but it really helped me and made me stop grinding. So Evelyn, any help for teeth grinding it while reading or while sleeping?
Well, the fact is that since he's doing it while he's sleeping, that's a very automatic. When you're asleep and you're still doing that, that is where the learning to wear the teeth guard really does help. And that's everybody across the board. And if you have a BCBA there, they can help you. If he doesn't understand why it's in his mouth, they can do systematic desensitization so he gets used to it being in his mouth so that he can actually wear it during those time periods. The question about the reading, like he grinds his teeth while he's sleeping, it probably started as just a regular, behavior. And then if he's been doing it a while now, it's probably turned into some kind of habit or ritual. And so maybe when he now thinks, when I'm reading, this is what I should do with my teeth. And then if that's an issue, it's the same thing. You can use the mouth guard during that time. Like if he's going to read, this is what he needs to wear. But you don't want actually, if it becomes a punishment where he doesn't want to read books anymore, and that's a good thing for him, then what you work on is you work with your BCBA on creating a behavior plan on reinforcing basically reading with no teeth grinding. But if he's doing it naturally, you would have to be there. So every time he picks up a book, someone's nearby and doing some kind of reinforcement to show him that the behavior that you really want is just to read with no teeth grinding. And if he does grind his teeth, maybe the book disappears a little bit and then you bring it back in so that he starts to learn that, oh, you want me to read books, but I'm not supposed to do this thing with my mouth. But they will have, your BCBA does need to go in and look at the function of the behavior. Is it sensory where he just likes that feeling too? And, you're looking at it from that point of view and then creating a behavior intervention plan on that way? Or is it just really just purely habitual and automatic now because he just paired the two where he knows, he thinks that every time he reads, he should be doing that? You never know what it is. So if you have a BCBA come in and do a functional behavior assessment, try to figure it out, why he's doing it, and then be able to attend to it that way. That's what they do. And, the dentist really, usually, I'm surprised they actually didn't suggest a mouth guard. Most dentists do right away.
And she said that she wrote back to the viewer and said, he didn't mention a mouth guard, probably because my son being 6, and like you said, I doubt he will tolerate it. It will be a battle, unfortunately. And what makes me mad about that is that I will tell you, you're going to see this time and time again where doctors who aren't as well trained and well versed in autism, when you tell them that your child has autism, they're going to change what they think is the medical path for your child. Now, on the one hand, we can appreciate that because, no child is alike, but it makes me mad that they won't even consider, because you have hopefully a behaviorist who's working with you, and you can have this child be systematically desensitized to a mouth guard. It may take a long time, but to just go, he has autism, so I'm not even going to talk to you about this path, makes me mad at him. Certainly not mad at you. But I want for everybody, watching, because the time that I remember, what they say, if it's hysterical, it's historical. And I'm mad right now because my son had the flu when he was in pre-K. And there was another little boy in his class who did not have autism, who had the flu. They were both horribly sick. In the same 24-hour period, we went to the emergency room, had the same doctor. The other little boy was given an IV with fluids and was back to school in 3 days. My son was not given an IV with fluids. And when I asked why, he said, well, because he had autism, I didn't think he would tolerate it. And he was sick for 2 more weeks. And that was the last time for me. I tell doctors when I need to tell them, and when they start to say, well, we wouldn't do that, I would go, why? Because behaviorally, we know what we're doing. Don't tell me you're not going to give him medical treatment because you're afraid of how he's going to react. It makes me mad. Okay, now ask me how I really feel. But you can call that dentist back up and say to them, listen, I want to have a conversation about the mouth guard. I'm going to be getting some help to work on that so that they don't feel like they're responsible for it. But systematic desensitization, Evelyn, is, it's a thing. It's widely available. It works remarkably. Do you want to talk about that for 2 seconds?
Yeah, I was going to actually add to this, just because I have children and I have all this experience now with teeth and everything else, the technology has really changed on this. So like for teeth grinding, a lot of times, a lot of like the doctors or orthodontists, they actually there's machines in the office now where they make it to form your teeth, where it's almost like a plastic retainer. It's almost like an Invisalign. And they use that now for people who grind their teeth. And what's great about that machine is it's a little bit on the pricey side, but you can choose colors and designs and all this kind of stuff now, which was not available previously. And sometimes if you have a child who loves blue or loves the Hulk and, or whatever it is, if they can design their own, our kids, when they like something, they really love things. And the fact that is there now, that might be one thing that will entice your child to be able to put this in their mouth, one step of it, because he really loves whatever it is. And so that, that's technology now that's catching up, to helping us. But systematic desensitization is, for some reason that child does not like, whether it's how to wear a sweater or the feeling of something on their skin or the taste of a certain type of food or the feeling of a toothbrush in their mouth, whatever it may be. Systematic desensitization is it's a technique where we slowly get the child used to whatever that feeling is or taste is or whatever it is, and they slowly acclimate it. And it's very, very methodical how long they get introduced to it. And he might put it in his mouth for 1 second and we're going to praise him right at the beginning. But the next time we're going to say, okay, now we're going to put it in there for 2 seconds. And that's why it might take a long time, but it works. And the thing is, you give him a reinforcer every time he does, do participate in this whole methodology of getting used to something. And so then hopefully he'll start to pair whatever that good reinforcer is with having access to that reinforcer. So it's a behavioral technique that has been tried and true. And most of the time when it doesn't go right, it's because the jumps and steps were too big. And people say, oh, we tried systemization, didn't work. And it's usually because they went from like 1 minute to 2 minutes. And hey, you know what? 1 minute to 2 minutes is something that you hate could be a really long time for that person that hates it. So it's really slowing down the process and letting them really adjust to whatever the feeling, taste, whatever it is that they're having to get used to, sound, and doing it very slowly and over a course of time and very methodically. And you really have to commit to it, because the more time and exposure that child has to whatever that thing that he's not tolerating to, the more time and the more effort and the more exposure, he'll get it much faster. So you do really have to commit to it once you start, but you just have to make sure you're doing it slowly enough and that you're consistently pairing it with something that he likes, and it does work. They get used to it.
Sorry, I'm muted.
Yeah, mute.
Sorry, because I have a dog now here with me in the room, and it was eating very loudly, and I didn't want to share that with all of you, so I muted myself. But anyway, I was just going to say, because, we inherit a dog when my friend passed away a couple of weeks ago, and I have a dog that doesn't like to be around other dogs. And so, we are having to use systematic desensitization. If you watch, Temple Grandin was the one who was telling me, to keep doing it because it was working. But of course, I jumped a little bit and I tried to go a little too fast. And this is the thing that we do as parents. We have to forgive ourselves for that. But when you find yourself pushing and you've gone too far, go back to the last thing that was working, and then go very slowly. We see this in our lives all the time because we do daylight savings time. And, normally the sun sets like about 55 seconds difference every day. And you and I don't notice it. It's just like we just don't notice it because it's such a small amount that we don't notice it. But when it's a full hour, we all freak out for a week. We freak out for a week. And yet it happens every day for 55 seconds. And now if every day it changed by just 10 more seconds instead of that hour, we'd never notice. And we'd all just go, we'd go, look at that. It's getting darker much earlier now. We would never even notice. But that, we decided to make that leap of the hour, and we all there's more car accidents the week after the clocks go back because people are like, I can't sleep. I don't know what to do. I'm all thrown off for a whole week. So we're doing systematic desensitization all the time without even realizing it. The universe gives it to us. Okay, so definitely go back to that dentist. And she said, thanks, ladies, for all the help. Go back to that dentist, have a conversation, and make him help you because your child deserves treatment. Just because he's on the spectrum and things may take longer does not mean that he doesn't deserve it. Okay, moving on to another question. You addressed this just a little bit before, but let's talk about it. Do you have any suggestions regarding how to work on social skills for children learning online this year who will not be in a classroom with other kids? This is going to be part of the tough right now. And of course, there's a lot of people arguing what's most important right now. And it looks like a lot of schools are going to be going back to a hybrid method where if you really feel that you need to stay home, they'll allow you to, but that they're going to have some students come back to the classroom. And the big argument for why is socialization. So this is tough for our parents, but if you've made the decision to stay home, how can you not lose ground?
Okay, so it depends on what level of skill, but it's possible. It's, just having children of my own, I've watched my teenager, the way that she socializes is so different from when I was, when I was a teenager. She and her friends they're going to go watch a movie together. One of them turns on the movie and all of them sit in a Zoom room and they share their screen and they all watch together.
I love that.
And they make comments to each other. And then sometimes they just all get on because they want to be together and they're all doing their own thing in their own rooms at home. But, and they'll be showing each other things that they're doing. There's not a lot of talking sometimes, and sometimes there's a lot of talking. But socialization itself has changed through all this quarantine. And also technology has changed it. For them, it's less of a sudden change. For them, it's been slowly coming more and more. But depending on where your child is. So we had a 3 and 4-year-old the other day do a play date, and it was the funnest thing to watch. And it was just, one had autism and one did not. And the supervisor just decided to bring her kid in just to see how it would work. And, ask the parent for permission, got them online. It wasn't Legos, but they were playing with some other toy that was similar. They didn't have the same toy, but they had them come in. They put the iPads next to each other so that they could see each other. And the therapist that was with our ASD kiddo was like prompting him to show and to like make a conversation, you know, just be able to do. He had very minimal language, but there's a ton of things that kids can parallel play. That's actually a developmental milestone, is to parallel play next to each other. And initially it was just to show him that the other kid was on the screen and they're both playing. And then at some point it got to just the showing, just like, look at my, whatever it is, and being able to show it, and the other one getting really excited. And, you know, the typical kid was like, oh my goodness, that's so great. I love that. And telling him, and our ASD kid was just like, this is amazing. Like, I've never, like, you know, he couldn't believe it. And, but it was so reinforcing for him just to get that feedback from a peer, really. But he was like learning, and he started just like trying to show things. And the other kid was perfect because he was just like responding and giving him a ton of attention. And that was incredible to see. And then you get to the level of where they're able to talk and they do some exchanges over learning how to respond to people who are talking to them, you know, or they're home and just being able to show, like, want to see my room, want to see my kitchen, like getting them, you know, that type of information. And there's a lot of social skills that you can still work on. Yes, it's not like what we think typically of what we thought about socialization in school. But the thing is, right now, we're in a different type of environment. And the need to be social is, my extrovert friends are going crazy, but they're all figuring it out. And they're all figuring it out through the web. You know, they do FaceTime, they do Zoom, they call people, they interact, they create games online. I'm watching like some 9-year-olds do a Zoom party for the birthday, and the parents were really organized and basically contacted all the parents and said, you know, we're going to drop off a little like package of like one of this makeup for like little 9-year-old girls, and we're going to get on and give it to the child when they sign on. And they sign in, and they're all like experimenting with makeup, you know, like lip gloss and just like little things, and they're able to have those exchanges and, you know, be together and pretty happy about it, you know? So it's the same way where it's like, let's look at the level of a skill that your child has. Let's find those people out there, make sure they're interactive. And sometimes it doesn't always have to be a peer. It can be like all the parents, grandparents, neighbors, there's a lot of opportunity. You just kind of have to think differently. And it takes some the strange thing that I found for myself is that I've been helping parents talk to neighbors, like peers, the parents of peers, to tell them, like, no, we're trying to work on socialization, but you know what, your kid wants to be social too. So This is going to help you too, because they want to see their friends too. So, you know, like trying to convince them to like schedule a play date in that way. It takes a little bit more convincing for the person that you're trying to tap to play with. And, you know, our patient, we want to increase, we're working on this. So, you know, parents are usually totally like into it, but it's more of like the family members, the cousins or somebody else, and trying to get them onto the page of this is how you can socially interact through, you know, through Zoom or some other way. But there's a lot now. There's a new app I saw called Marco Polo. It's video chatting. You video and it stays on, the other person has the app. And like my niece actually sent it to me. She wanted to tell me how she was doing, but she actually is really sick right now. So she actually she's like, I can't text, I'm gonna video you, load this app. And so she actually told me how she was doing. And then whoever has the app it goes to, you can go on and you watch it, and then you can respond with a video. And so it just keeps it there. So it's like you're talking back and forth, but you do it when you have time. And so there's just all these different ways right now that you can be social. So I hope that helps.
Necessity is the mother of invention, right? And we have great necessity right now. And there's a lot of people who feel the need to be social. And it's not just our kids. And this is one of the things that we have to remember is that our kids, not all of them, but our kids tend to be a little bit more interested in technology than they are in people. Right? Not all of them, but some of them. And so in a way, there's a I'm looking at it this way. Everybody's having to learn how to communicate via this modality. And we've all already been doing this for 4 months, and it looks like it's going to be continuing for quite some time. And then even after this phase of things is over, people are still going to be doing this for a while. So please, I know a lot of parents were like, but this isn't natural. This isn't normal. This is going to be the kids' new normal. They're going to take this period of time, and they're going to create things based on this. This generation of kids is going to be more in tune to this. So don't avoid this with your kids. Like I would run headlong into it. I know they're like, oh, my kid's already on screen time enough. But as I'm talking to parents of kids that have teenagers, the problem that they're telling me, they'll say, well, I'm worried about socialization, and I'm worried about, because all he does is spend time on his computer. But then when I ask them, what is he doing on the computer? They're telling me, well, he's playing a game with his friend. And I'm just encouraging parents, if you've got those kids, go play the game too, so that you can see what they're playing and how they're playing to make sure that it's all appropriate. But I think you'll feel better because they are socializing. Even, a lot of them are telling me they're playing Roblox. Even older kids are playing Minecraft again, because they can play as a group and they can do things together. So, and that's not a bad thing. That's still socialization. What were you going to say, Evelyn?
I was going to say, like, even I have a kid who finished when she was 5, and I think she's almost 30 now. And when she was a teenager, her mom would say, like, she's pretty good, but she just has little things, like she laughs a little longer than other people do, or she'll go into a little bit more detail than, other people. But for the most part, she has friends. And her mom actually, at this point, and this is more than 10 years ago, but technology, when instant messaging was the way that our kids, that was their video or their online chatting, she said that her daughter would just keep her instant message open, and she knew how to chat back and forth. And that really is how she actually established friendships with her friends at school. And then so when she was in school and she would just laugh a little longer or say things a little bit too much that was just a little odd, they were totally okay with it, because their friendship was established more on how appropriate she was with the instant messaging. So they knew her, and they knew all these things about her in that format. So then it didn't really matter anymore, and so it's something that's been slowly coming. And talk about systematic desensitization. I think for all these teens, that's those 20-somethings, they've slowly become more and more interactive as technology has developed. And now, my nephew actually is doing an internship at a school on the East Coast. And all his friends are gone because the school vacated, right? Everyone went online. So he's living in an apartment by himself in a dorm with nobody there. Like, there's hardly anybody there. And I was like, are you okay? Like, where are your friends? And he was like, oh, it's no big deal. I just get online and we play games together.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of different things out there, but, if you look at what the neurotypical kids and the neurotypical people are doing, they're struggling with this too. But I think again, not all of our kids, once you put them onto this kind of thing, it seems like to me, they catch on to this faster. So we'll take our pluses whenever we can take them. But there are all kinds of things. On Friday, we're having Cindy Kenya from the Wilgear Theatricum Botanicum joining us. And she's going to be talking about some of the online classes that they have that may or may not be appropriate for some members of the autism community. But we're also going to talk a little bit about some of the online camps and classes that are being done across the country. This summer, more than any other summer, you guys, it used to be that we would feature stuff on the show and we would show you, for instance, the Miracle Project or the classes that they were doing at the Ed Asner Family Center. And you guys would say, well, that's all lovely, but I don't live in Los Angeles, right? Well, this summer, they're all available to you no matter where you live. And some of them are free. All of the classes that they're doing at the Ed Asner Center, and there's at least one every day, free. Including, there is a movie chat for teens and young adults on Saturday nights. They announced the movie that they're going to play on Mondays. Well, it's not they're going to play it because that's copyright. You have to watch it on your own. So they announce the movie on Monday, you watch the movie on your own, and you show up on Saturday and you're on Zoom. And the facilitator for it is a young woman who's on the spectrum who is amazing, Chelsea Darnell. And I hear that it's like the most incredible time, and it's all this social, and people are making friends, and they're making friends with people in their community and friends across the world. So there's all kinds of things available. So I would lean into that. Yeah.
I have a new thing that I just heard about, and it was online. And for some of you parents that have, if you really, really want that social interaction, this is the time where you can go through, and because everybody's looking for this for their kids, but yeah. I've had a family create a camp in their backyard. So what they did was they found a family that they trusted. They created a pod, and they actually hired like one of the teenagers, and they had the kids. They made up a camp that's only like, I think it's 2 hours, 2 times a week or something, and they named it like camp whatever it was. And they actually take turns creating, doing kind of camp in their backyard with this pod of kids. And so if you really feel like you really need that and you have the ability, that it's an awesome opportunity to create social interaction. And the thing is, for our kids with ASD, 1 or 2 hours is perfect, because it's just a little, enough to get the interaction, but not to kind of go overboard. And depending on your child, it might just be 1 hour, it might be 30 minutes. But since all the families out there are looking for this kind of interaction right now, a lot of people will be open to this kind of idea.
Yeah, and I think that this is really going to be how everybody starts to move as we get closer to the fall. It's what they're talking about doing in schools, is creating pods. The trick is that you got to find people who have the same comfortable meter that you have. Because what's comfortable for me is not like, I would love to create a pod but nobody is as paranoid as I am. Everybody wants to be in my pod because they're like, Shannon, we know you guys are safe because you haven't gone anywhere and you wipe everything down with hydrogen peroxide. So everybody wants to be in my pod. And I'm like, no, I can't be in your pod. You go places. I'm not going places. I don't want your pod. But if you can find people that have the same level of comfortable, especially if they have kids that your kids enjoy playing with, because you're going to want to do that for the holidays. Some people already did that with the 4th of July. Some people did it and weren't thinking about that. And it didn't end well for them. For Memorial Day, we have already seen that. But so be mindful when you're picking your pod, make sure that, it's like a social contract. Like what are you doing? What are you not doing? What risks are you taking? What risks are you not taking? Okay, so we've got another question here. My kid collects saliva in his mouth most of the time. How can I work on this so he does not do this? And by the way, while you're thinking about that, Evelyn, we're saying hi to Christina. We're saying hi to Callie, to Allison, and Nasser. Hello, everyone.
Very good. Very good. One thing I learned a long time ago, and I've been doing it actually with kids, and I just did it with one of our little 4-year-olds on the East Coast, and the mom was amazed that it worked, is a lot of our kids just don't know when they're thirsty. They don't know to ask for water, and just like increasing that, it was always based on the parent offering water before the kids before they drink usually. And what I realized that is a lot of them, they started collecting saliva because they just didn't know how to swallow, or they just were thirsty. And there's some function there that is related to thirst, and I don't know what's going on in their head, but just by teaching them to drink water, suddenly all of the saliva collecting and spitting went away. I don't know why. I can hypothesize, but that is something that I would encourage, is if your child is pooling saliva, I would say the first thing I would do is, hey, let's increase your water intake. And let's and sometimes it's just putting it on a schedule for the child, and then they just drink water, and suddenly they're learning how to swallow. Some of them, they just don't recognize the physical sensation, and then they don't swallow. Because swallowing is one of the things that we have to teach kids how to do, let's say on command. So it will say, like, is it under SD control, which is basically like, if I tell you swallow, can you actually swallow? And it's the same way if we say clap, will he clap? And so we'll teach the kids, like, swallow, and we'll use water or drink or something or food, you know, and just say it's time to swallow now. And then they'll do it. And by teaching them to swallow, a lot of times that pulling goes away. It's almost like there's something in their brain where they don't recognize it. And then if they've been doing it long enough and they start to play with it, there's a whole nother function added now, because now I'm like playing with something because it's there. And that's where a lot of our kids do get pretty creative in how they're playing, because they don't know how to play with typical toys a lot of times. So they needed some kind of replacement behavior. So then it becomes a combination of, can they swallow? Can they tell you you're thirsty and drink? You know, can they, do they have other leisure activity, play activities that they can engage in? So there's a lot of different factors here, but one of the things I would encourage is just like teaching them how to drink water. And it can start on a schedule initially and get to the point where they want to drink water. It's a healthy habit. You just have to make it easily and available enough. And for so many of the kids I've worked with, I can't even tell you how many, it gets rid of that pulling and the saliva playing. Yeah. It's so fast. It's really interesting. I never even realized that I did it. For me, it was just like, oh, this is what's going on here. Try this. And then you don't hear about it again because it goes away. But with this 4-year-old, this mom was really funny, because she called me and she was like, where did that come from? And I was like, I don't know. I just, somewhere along the way, I had figured it out, and we'd never written it anywhere. But it works. It's just like, he just didn't know how to ask for water. And he's so cute, because one of the therapists actually had told him, if you spit, you can't play with kids, you know, like, because he wanted to play with kids. And she was like, if you spit, you cannot play with kids, and maybe your therapist can't come anymore, because, you know. And he was so funny, because he actually told his the therapist, Miss Evelyn said I'm thirsty if I want to spit, so it means I'm thirsty. So now I'm supposed to. He said something like, I have to ask mommy for water, but it went away. It went away so fast. And she had, later on, we had talked about it. She's like, yeah, he had never asked me for anything to drink. Oh.
Well, and yeah, I don't know about everybody else. Is everybody else so suggestible that as we were talking about this, I was really aware of the saliva that I have in my mouth, and when I swallow and I had to take a drink and all those things. But, you know, it is one of those things that once we become aware of it, then, you know, it brings us to another level. And I just think how genius that is, Evelyn, because if you think about it, it's a competing behavior. It's impossible to hold spit in your mouth and swallow water.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so many of our kids, they don't understand their physical state. That's why our kids could be really cold, and they don't tell you they're cold or hot. They're sweating and they don't take off their sweatshirt. Like, a lot of it has to do with, they're just not in touch with, like, what is this feeling? You know, it's not concrete enough, so they're not identifying. And it's the same thing with hunger and thirst. It's what ABA people call a private event. Only the person who has that feeling knows what it is, and everybody around them can only see, like, evidence of it. So they know you're hot because your face is red or sweating, you know. And so these private events, trying to get the kids to tact, like, when are you hungry? When are you full? The ones that will just eat, or the ones that just stuff food in their mouth and don't know when to stop. It's because they're not identifying what full is when their mouth is full. They just don't realize what that private event is. And I think like a lot of the kids, who have that saliva play, saliva pooling, saliva, whatever, all the stuff that has to do with saliva, I think a lot of it is related to not identifying that it's there.
Okay. We have a question that breaks my heart. That somebody wrote in and said, why is my son destructive? And already one of the other viewers wrote back and said he's communicating. But let's talk a little bit about why kids, and we don't have any more information, but if you want to write in more about how old your son is, what he's destroying, and when he destroys it, that would be helpful to Evelyn to know. But it is true, he's communicating something. It's a behavior, and behavior is all communication. And when we can figure out why somebody's communicating what they're communicating, then we can figure other things out. But so why do kids engage in destruction, Evelyn?
You know, people always think the problem behaviors are related to the diagnosis of autism, and that's how you get a diagnosis, but really problem behaviors are not a part of the diagnosis. It's more a symptom of not being able to communicate. You know, they know that if they break something and somebody comes running, maybe that's how they get that parent's attention, you know?
Yeah.
They know that if I throw something or if I hit something and somebody comes running, maybe that function of that behavior is attention, and that's the only way he knows. It's the easiest way to get their attention.
Yeah.
So it's just like the kids who scream in a classroom. They know if they scream, someone's going to pull them out of the environment, then that's for escape. So they know maybe this person is destroying something because they know that they'll make you leave the room. So then that's an escape, you know, behavior. It's like, this is how I tell somebody I don't want to be here anymore, is I'm going to break something in this room, and then you'll take me somewhere else, you know? And so there's some of the kids, they don't have enough play or leisure activity. And, you know, when they break something, it's kind of a cool cause and effect toy. You know, they don't know how to do all these other things, and cause and effect is really, you know, they understand this thing so that, wow, if I drop this glass, it breaks, and it's kind of cool. They're not, you know, the danger or safety issue or just destruction isn't even a part of their thinking. They just think like, wow, it's kind of neat how it just smashes into 1,000 pieces and looks really cool when the light comes in too. So there's so many reasons that I can't tell you why your child is destructive, but a lot of times they're communicating, either they need something or they want to leave a place or avoid something. There's something in there that they don't like. They hear a noise that they don't like, and they don't know how to tell you, I can't stand this noise, so I'm going to break this or throw this, and then you're going to come remove me from the environment. It could be like, I don't know what else to do, so now I'm breaking things because it's kind of cool to watch things break into 1,000 pieces. There's so many reasons out there that are, or they know if they break something, you'll bring them something else. So it's their way of asking for an item, you know, so you just don't know what it is. I can't tell you off the bat, but if you send them information.
She's given us a lot more information too, Evelyn. This young man is 25 years old. He is deaf and he signs, and that he destroys things when he has a major meltdown. And I just want to say, you know, people have accused me of always siding with the kids. It's not that I want to side with the kids, but I always try to put myself, you know, we're always trying to teach our kids perspective taking. So I want to do perspective taking. If I was 25 years old and I was on the autism spectrum and I was deaf and I did sign language, already you know, even though sign language is wonderful and it's beautiful, and I'm trying to learn some this summer, not everyone knows how to do sign. Right. And so, you know, so there's always going to be a level of frustration. But if I was 25 years old and I did not understand my world and I didn't have a way to get my needs met, you can bet your bottom dollar that I would be breaking stuff. Because if I don't have a way of getting my needs met, you know, I always say, if an aliens picked me up and transported me to some place where I didn't speak the language, they didn't have hands and I didn't understand their gestures, how many minutes do we think it would take Shannon before I would start throwing stuff and hitting people? Because at some point I would need to go to the bathroom. I would be hot or cold. I would want to know what was going on. How long was I going to be kept there? Like, I would have things that I would need to know. I'm guessing it would take me 15 minutes before I had a meltdown. And so, you know, essentially that's what it's like for our kiddos. They're on another planet where they don't understand the rules. They don't understand the language. They don't understand the gestures. And so I'm not saying that you need to live with the destruction. Evelyn's going to help you to figure that part out and make some suggestions for that. But I think it helps us as parents to go, oh, that's what this behavior is stemming from, is that, you know, they don't have another way. They don't have another way. So now that you know that, Evelyn, 25.
So, Yeah, so definitely what will help is if you bring in a behavior analyst to help you do a functional behavior assessment. But before that, and even with that, Shannon, you have a cool little terminology for this, and you can tell us what it is for parents, but it's basically what you're going to start doing is when he has this kind of behavior, get a notebook out and start writing what happened right before it.
Yeah.
And that's what we call an antecedent. What was going on before this behavior happened? And then what was the behavior? And then what did you do afterwards? And that's the consequence. And if you just start keeping a notebook of each time this behavior occurs, you may see a pattern develop. You may see that it's when the TV is on. So maybe there's a sound or visual that he doesn't like, or maybe it's not what he wanted or expected to be on. Or maybe he was doing something and then whatever he was playing with or occupying his attention, it stopped working. So now he doesn't know how to get it fixed because it's not doing what he wants. So now that's frustration, and eventually you want to teach him how to go ask for help, to get things done. But start to write down just like, what was he doing before the behavior happened? What was the behavior? And then what did you do after? And if you start keeping this type of data, you'll start to see similarities come about, and you'll start to be able to figure out like, oh, he didn't know how to sign for X. So maybe you're going to teach him how to sign for help, or sign for, I'm frustrated, it's not working, whatever it may be. And then if you get a behavior analyst coming, you can show them all your data, and then it'll be so much faster for the behavior analyst to put together a behavior plan for you. But I would definitely encourage you to do it, because there's probably some pattern, and it can be more than one function when he does this. But overall, what I've realized from the adults that I've worked with who engage in a behavior, it's really specific. They really do. It's some form of communication that they don't know how to tell you or tell someone, and it may be like very impulsive too, in the sense that something didn't work and immediately they start breaking things. And so you would have to try to figure out that aspect of things. But for the most part, if you start taking this type of data and this type of information down, you're going to see your patterns, and you're going to see what language is missing. And then you can teach him the sign for it. And then next time you see it almost happening, you're going to stop him and prompt him to sign for, whatever it is that is happening in the moment. And then you can basically help the situation before the emotion, takes over and he breaks something. But that's very general. But if you can get someone, yep, go on, Shannon, tell them what that stands for.
Okay, so you take a piece of paper and you fold it into 3, right? So now you automatically have 3 columns, and you write A, B, C, it's reversed, sorry, across the top, because it's the ABCs of behavior. And whenever you take this with you wherever you go, it's in your pocket, right? And when your child is engaging in a behavior, you don't pull the paper out right then, but you're just thinking about the B, because A stands for antecedent, which is the before, B is the behavior, C is the consequence. We're always focused on the B because we think, well, this is the behavior I want to change, but often we don't have all that much control over the actual behavior while it's happening, but the A and the C is where we have control, but we have to be sleuths. So, and this helps in a lot of different ways. So while your child is engaged in the behavior, parent to parent, instead of thinking all the things which we normally think which is, this is terrible, this is because of autism, I'm a horrible parent, this will never end, this will be the rest of their life, this will be the rest of my life, woe is me, right? We go right there. And that's not helpful to anybody, right? Because then we get hysterical, and that's not good. So instead, we watch the behavior. The experts call it the topography of behavior, but we're being detectives. We're going, oh, look at that. He's screaming and he's yelling. Oh, I better move that glass of lemonade out of the way. Oh, okay, now he's on the floor and I'm timing it. Oh, it's been 4 minutes. And now he's screaming obscenities. And you're just making a mental list of what it looks like, so that later on, when it's over, you're going to write down what the behavior looked like. Then, while it's still fresh in your mind, you're going to write what happened after the behavior was over. You're going to be honest. You're going to, like, did you feed him cookies after? Because I've done that. Like, I've done that. He did a behavior and I fed him cookies. Just be honest about it, right? Because it like enlightens everything. Whatever the consequence was, did he get to take a nap? Did he get to watch videos? What was the consequence after the behavior? And then you try to remember, and this is going to be less fresh in your mind, but over time you're going to see a pattern. What happened before? Did I ask him to do something? Did he eat gummy bears? Because sometimes you go, oh, look at that, every time I feed him red food coloring, we get the behavior. So once you have this, you'll start to see patterns, but you take that to your BCBA and they go, look at that, you're brilliant, because I'm already steps ahead because I have that. Anybody can do it. It will change your life, because if nothing else, you will look at the tantrum in a different way, because you'll be standing there going, this time, oh, that's new. Oh, he's throwing things. I've never seen that before. And it will help you to not be as like, I always used to say it was like my son would throw a tantrum and it was like I could hear a toilet flushing my life away in the background, right? And right, it was just like, oh, cue the toilet flushing, there goes my life. And instead, I started being a scientist and taking, by the way, this is what they tell people to do in a crisis. Like, this is how they help rape victims, is that you start to like look and notice all the things so you can have the person be caught, because it helps you to separate from what's happening. So it's good for you. So that's, and then you'll start to see, oh, well, he only destroys stuff. And it could be he destroys stuff when you ask him to do stuff. It could be he destroys stuff when I haven't paid attention to him for a while. It could be that he destroys stuff after you feed him egg salad because he's allergic to eggs. Like, who knows? There's an endless list. We're about to be out of time, though, and I want to make sure that I address that. We had somebody who their child wants to smell everything. And is that normal? 9 years old, and this is something he wants to smell everything. And then there are also people speculating about they'd like to see me have a meltdown or are afraid to see me have a meltdown. No one wants to see me have a meltdown. Let me trust me on this. This is okay. So for the child who wants to smell everything, what do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a common enough behavior, okay, among our population. I think neurotypical kids and people have this behavior too. It's just that they have the social conscious to do it subtly. I think that's the only difference. Is there are some people who love smells, like have a friend who by a smell can remember exactly where he was, like when he was a kid. Like he, a specific dinner and everything. Like he remembers all sorts of things just by a smell. And so I think that the difference is the social awareness of whether you learn how to do it subtly and in a way that doesn't make people frown upon it, or other ways. So we do have those kids. It's another sensory aspect. It's one of your sensory things. We have the kids who love to see things, who are visual learners. We have the ones who smell, the ones who want to taste everything to figure out what the world is. That is actually a developmental milestone, right, to mouth. And that's the theory is that's how kids figure out what things are, is if they put that in their mouth. But I think the sensory aspect of there is something very enticing to him about it. And probably things like that he's probably smelled some pretty good things. And it's like, it's probably more reinforcing than it is like not liking something. So he's very interested. So a lot of it is teaching him to do it when it's appropriate. Like if he has, it's just teaching him when to do it, when it's appropriate, when it's allowed. He can't just go up to somebody and just smell them, because that is, typical people would be like, okay, this is a little weird, or what are you doing so close to me? So maybe you could teach him some rules about it. Like, you can do this with family, but even with family, you have to ask first, or if he's vocal, you're going to teach him how to ask, like, what's that smell? Like, are you wearing perfume? Or is that food? Like, what, some people have a really sensitive nose, And if you walk in after dinner, they can tell you, you know, you've had garlic, you've had, you know, whatever it is. But teaching him how to vocally get the information and to get the information appropriately, and that if there's a stranger out there, you are not allowed to go up there to them and smell what it is, you know, smell them. It's just not allowed, because if somebody doesn't know what's going on, they could think that the kid's going to bite them. Because that's how close you need to get through. So you have to think about the other person's perspective, like how do they see this? And so a lot of it is just teaching them how to do this appropriately, because I'm pretty sure there's tons of people out there that are typical, that have, you know, that who like smells too, or are interested in them, but they just know how to do it in a socially appropriate way.
Yeah, I've got a friend who's a chef, and it's amazing how, like, they, you know, they pick up everything and every piece of fruit before they purchase. I don't do that, but they pick up everything. But they are also somebody who, as you're talking about it, they're very in tune to smells. So, you know, they hug you and they're the person who will say, oh, your hair smells great. Or, you know, do I smell this cooking or whatever? So you're right. It can be completely appropriate. We just have to teach the parameters on it. When to do it, how to do it, how to smell and not comment on it, right? You should be smelling somebody from afar, but you don't have to mention anything about it, right? How to, you know, make your face like, you know, so you're smelling and that nobody else can know, because we're all inhaling all the time. This is fascinating. We are unfortunately out of time, but I just want to thank Evelyn for being here with us, and I want to thank all of you guys for being here with us. We will be back tomorrow on the show. And tomorrow we have Bonnie Yates, special education attorney Bonnie Yates, answering your questions. If you've got school questions about school during the summer or school during the fall, write them into me now, and so that I can have them for Bonnie. But thank you so much for being here, Evelyn, and answering the questions. This was great. I'm going to go and not have a meltdown. And I hope that all of you and your kiddos don't have a meltdown either. We'll be back tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.